In this episode, you'll learn why needing to be right is keeping you wrong about everything. Welcome to Energy Alignment for Entrepreneurs, the podcast helping entrepreneurs be free from anxiety, stress, and tension through balancing emotions and consciousness expansion. 3 things you'll discover today. How being right becomes more important than being happy. Why your ego would rather be right than free. And what to do when you realize you've been defending lies. This is one of my all-time favorite topics because there are going to be a multitude of different perspectives and opinions from almost everyone whom you come across in life. And let's understand that cave, that trap, that illusion of how being right gets more important than happiness. And you can probably observe this in your past with certain connections or circumstances. It could be like a opinion about a specific pathway in life or an attitude of, it really all sprouts from, hey, you need to understand this is how it is. And where I love to speak on the deeper truths of life, but I do not lose an ounce of peace over the pacing at which humanity wakes up. Because there's so much of this, it's not in my control. And therefore, I love to have conversation of openness and depth on topics where I'm not debating you nor arguing you, and I'm not trying to be right. I just want to have a conversation and see where you're at and if we could learn together through a conversation, right? That's a super different attitude than me having the motive or intention to make you see a certain way, right? In these episodes, I'm not at all hinged to changing you. I'm just rooted in, hey, life can be hard. And through the trials and tribulations, I've started to see a little bit. And maybe me sharing my journey with you can help you connect to your own power or your own strength, right? So I at least want to lay that foundation there. But the attitude of this, it needs to be this way, and you need to do it this way, is so disgusting. It could be in any field, whether it's sales or it is jujitsu or weightlifting or nutrition or religion, etc. The moment that you try to tell another person, hey, you're wrong, you need to do it like this. Oh my gosh, is that just like the wrong way to communicate the message? There are very often moments in life where you or I or we are incorrect. Maybe we make a mistake. Maybe we didn't tighten the bolt enough. The list goes on. Maybe the folding of the clothes wasn't smooth, or this is how you learn. This is how you learn. See, I love the connection between the physical realm and the spiritual because it really comes together when you start to realize, okay, you do physical things, then you get emotionally, psychologically, energetically triggered. The doing of the things is meant to allow for your consciousness to smoothen out your relationship to friction, right? It's not that friction is bad, because if you didn't have the opportunity to work through friction, how would you ever find freedom or create freedom? You wouldn't. So the trials and tribulations start to be something that you see beauty within. Me speaking about depth doesn't mean that I don't have trials and tribulations. The relationship to the friction is totally not the same as younger Justin. And I am so grateful for all of the pain or friction or tension that has invited me to look within. So you start to realize I would much rather be joyous and free within than try to be right. It's like, are we going to play games of abundance, of compounding, or are we going to play zero sum games? Because me versus you, it is a zero sum game. It's weak, and there isn't fruit to be sown in that operational state. Now, in other words, if you are to start to change your heart, it opens. The pain purifies your darkness. And you realize, I'm done fighting those battles. And then you position yourself with this intelligence where you start to get in front of the battles before you create them. And then you just have less battles in your life. Yeah? Doesn't mean you still don't have some tough ones. You're going to have some tough battles. But then you start to learn, all right, I understand that certain fights aren't to be fought. And then you create yourself in a manner where you're prepared for anything, but naturally God pushes you to new avenues where, let's say, you used to be an individual who is very angry, right? As you learn to let go of your anger, God's going to put less things that make you angry in your life. And that's part because you're letting go of your anger and you're changing. But by the grace of God, that changing was invited, and now you're picking up to the tune of the beat. God's beating his drums, and the question is, are you going to dance? Are you going to move in harmony with what is so much more powerful than you? Yeah? Because now you start to look at point number 2 of why your ego would rather be right than free. And this is where you have to change to let your soul start to be heard. And then you realize that your ego being right isn't nearly as valuable and beautiful as being free. And then your psyche, your actions, your thinking, and your non-occupied states where you're just not thinking, all of that begins to shift in a way where your cells, your literal physical body, and the atoms are changing. So it's kind of magnificent how there's been many people who have been paralyzed. Doctors said you're done for. And they don't give up their faith. And they tune in. And their soul and their spirit allows for God to work through them. And what was logically concluded to be like just a conclusion, right? You can uproot the logic of life with your spirit and soul. Now, this is where the words struggle to hammer home the depth of the actual moments and where this work is happening. But for miracles to occur, Jesus or anyone who performs any miracle has no self-interest, no ego in the back of the mind saying, oh, if I perform this miracle, people will see me as good. Like that, for any God, any works of the Spirit to move through you has to be eradicated. You cannot have any ounce of this egotistical defensiveness or greed or weak lower vibrations. So this is where people will have opinions, and you're being presented with the opportunity every time you come across a triggering opinion to realize that they could be right, they could be wrong. You are where you are. What are you doing in this moment? What are you contributing to the world and yourself by operating how you're operating, right? You observe, you ask these questions. You're skeptical of yourself and you're skeptical of others. And that creates this connection to the moment where you learn to let the everyday moment to moment ruler guide you. And that's God. If you can live in the moment, and of course it takes work to free yourself of this excessive ego where it just always wants to control and overplan and there's going to be so many different things for so many different people. For me, I've noticed a theme in individuals where a victim mentality is terribly destructive, and it'll, like, your ego will play being right, and that'll come in the form of a victim sometimes. It can come in the form of just unhealthy habits like eating processed food and sugar cravings. It can come in the form of wasting your energy, whether that be entertainment, distraction, pornography, the list goes on. You start to pick up on these pillars of what you are, and you see that, all right, this is a holistic game. There's not a single thing that I do or don't do that doesn't have a ripple effect. And then there are going to be certain things that you don't want to do, but it takes patience for you to let go of them. That doesn't mean you can't let go of them immediately. It doesn't mean you have to taper off of things. It just means sometimes your spirit, sometimes you have to bang your head against the wall to get to a point where you really just let go of certain things. And that's part of life. We're here to develop consciousness. We're here to let our energetic karma or just burn. And for you to make the most of your life, you need to be terribly balanced. So I love this phrase, but it's like action without, or faith without action doesn't matter. And action without faith doesn't matter. It's all through God's will and God's grace, but you need to show God through action that you're ready to surrender. And it's tricky, but if you don't act, then you'll have this energy which inhibits your surrendering. So the reason I bring up surrendering is kind of to look in another angle at what the nature of the ego wanting to be right. And when you start to realize that being right is such a shallow endeavor, that it is a zero-sum game, then you just align yourself more naturally with the essence of freedom. And like what you do is seen from a bird's eye perspective now. And you really change to not live so much in this separated consciousness. You start to realize that you and another can dance together even though you're separate, you can be together. And the thing that inhibits the connectedness or the communion or the togetherness is you in your perception of being separate. And you start to dissolve all these opinions, realize, wait, the less opinions I have, the more likely I am to connect with others on a genuine level. And then you see, like, okay, is being right more fruitful than connecting with others on a genuine level? And the heart answer, the truth is no. That the reason we're all here, the beauty of life, is when we're connecting with others, when we're honest, when we're listening, when we're fully present in the moment. And you cannot do that. You can't work with the beauty of life when you're hinged upon the greed or the obsession of being above another, being correct, right? So, what to do when you realize you've been defending lies? You take a deep breath, first of all, and it is important to have discernment without judgment. Because even if you've done things that many people would label bad and you know are wrong, the things that have been done are done. I'm not saying that they are acceptable. I'm saying that you need to lock in to realize that you cannot control the past. You can only be what you are now. And if what you are now isn't holy and righteous, then you can change and you can let go of all of which prevents that purity from awakening within you. And the starting point is looking at yourself, looking at your own bullshit. It's very hard to lie to yourself. It is much easier to rationalize and bullshit yourself and justify and kind of come up with reasons logically of why your bad thing is okay. And that being said, you discern. So, like, you strip away darkness, you strip away impurities one by one. Sometimes it happens fast, and sometimes it happens slower. But real change, it can come to you in a moment's notice. But to align yourself with the moment's notice, you have to let certain things compound. So it is okay, things happen fast and things happen slow. Learn how to enjoy it all. With the patience part, you need to really have meaning behind what you're being patient for. You need to care and feel and put yourself in the right spots so that you can be persistent. It's so much easier to persist when there's actual meaning behind the thing that you're persisting for. And on the other end, if we're speaking in terms of like what to do right now, look at the feedback loops that you create. You know what I mean? If you've been defending lies, one lie, for example, would be that, I don't know, sugar doesn't affect me. Eat some sugar and then watch your body and your mind crave more sugar after you consume some. Or treat someone rudely, right? And then watch your consciousness and your psyche start to have regret. Now, some people, if they're stuck in lower vibrations, they'll justify and excuse and rationalize why it was okay for them to be rude to another. But if you're really doing the work, you look at yourself and you realize you're responsible for all your energy, no matter what triggered it, no matter what the situation was, no matter what the circumstances. From there, you're honest. And that regret becomes a guideline. You learn through your own regret, and then you stop doing the things which create the regret. That's what I say when you get ahead and you begin to realize, okay, I'm going to stop creating those wildfires because, okay, what if I don't have to spend the time putting out the fires because I was positioned wisely and intelligent and I didn't create the fires or I prevented the fires before they started? Then there's levels, and beyond there, you begin to see like this excess awareness, this potency in your fuel, where it gets easier and easier to stop bullshitting yourself, right? Wasted energy that used to go just seeping out of you while you were running around as a headless chicken is no longer being wasted. So then the question really is, where does that energy go? What does it do when you are moving with purity as much as possible, right? It compounds and your life changes because you're moving in alignment. You've learned so much through being out of alignment. All those mistakes were necessary. Else, how would you learn? So, this is that balance of, all right, you're not judging yourself, you are discerning. And you're not going to repeat the things that you've already seen have sour fruit or no fruit. Share this with a friend if you enjoyed this. I really appreciate each and every single one of you. I appreciate you listening. Thank you. Find someone in your life, whether it be a coworker, family member, random Joe, some guy at the gym. Just share it with them. If anything that I've shared has been valuable to you, pass it on. That's all I ask, genuinely. And I'm working on a fitness program. It's going to be affordable. And, if you want early bird discount or anything of that nature, just check the link in the description and you can hop on the free email list where basically I distill these podcasts in written form and I write some other things too. So have a great day. Sincerely, thank you. I appreciate you. And let's go. Come on now. Let's go.